So third is about the intestinal phase of gastric secretion. So intestinal phase of gastric secretion. So intestinal phase begins when the chyme starts to empty from the stomach into the intestine. This occurs when the chyme starts to empty from stomach to the intestine, and it is mainly having a role, it is having an inhibitory effect on the gastric secretion. So it is having an inhibitory effect on the gastric secretion, and it constitutes about 10% of the total gastric secretion. It contributes to about only 5 to 10% of the total gastric secretion, and it is mainly mediated by two mechanisms. One is enterogastric reflex, enterogastric reflex, and second is enterogastrones, enterogastric reflex and enterogastrones. So it is having an inhibitory effect on the gastric secretion, mainly mediated by the enterogastric reflex and enterogastrones. What is meant by enterogastric reflex? What is enterogastric reflex? That means the presence of, entero means some presence of food in the enteric intestine will be exerting some effect on the stomach. That is enterogastric reflex. Okay? Like the presence, actually what is the thing which is mainly responsible for inhibiting the gastric secretion here? So here the distension of the upper part of the small intestine. So the distension of the upper intestine and the presence of acidic chyme, because you know that in stomach the pH is very low and the chyme will become acidic, and the presence of acidic chyme in the intestine and the presence of this amino acids, the presence of polypeptides or presence of this partially digested products etc. will exert an effect on the gastric secretion. This will exert an effect on the gastric secretion via affecting the intrinsic and extrinsic, so as to cause an inhibition of the gastric secretion. So this is the mechanism of action of enterogastric reflex. So whenever there is a distension of the upper part of the intestine, or the presence of acidic chyme in the upper intestine, or the presence of partially digested food in the intestine, that can cause or that can influence the intrinsic as well as extrinsic sympathetic and vagus nerve, which will ultimately resulting in an inhibition of the gastric secretion. Then second thing is the enterogastrone. Enterogastrone means there are some hormones this is produced by the intestine which is having a role in inhibiting the gastric secretion. Say for example cholecystokinin, secretin, then GIP, VIP etc. are acting as enterogastrones, which is having a role in inhibiting the gastric secretion. So to summarize the intestinal phase, this starts when the chyme starts to empty from the stomach into the intestine, which is having an inhibitory effect on gastric secretion, contributes to about 5 to 10% of the total gastric secretion, which is influenced or which is mainly regulated by the enterogastric reflex and the enterogastrones.